Hello, Phantom fans. My name is Sam Olmstead. His name is Justin Irwin. This is the Dump and Chase podcast. We're back for another week. We have not been canceled yet. The trials and tribulations of the Covelli Center seem to get all over us, and the fact that last week's episode was even published is a modern miracle. So here's the hoping this week goes better.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any follow-up. The Covelli Center joke is done, and now we just got to kind of move on, and hopefully everything is recording from the right microphone this week.
All right, so I wanted to take a minute to mention our sponsor, Advanced Podiatry. You know, Justin, they've been around for over 35 years. So when they started, you would have been, what, 10, 11 years old?
Something like that, yeah.
So right about the time your hairline started retreating?
Yeah.
I just imagine your high school senior picture and you have like a Danny DeVito thing going on. But anyways, that's not nice.
Yeah. No, actually, then my hair was down past my shoulders.
I'm going to need photographic evidence just for the future. But anyways, one neat bit of information I found out when getting this whole partnership set up with Advanced Podiatry is that their offices are full of hockey fans. So, if over the holidays you chased Macaulay Culkin into a booby-trapped house and impaled your foot on a rusty nail, you can feel at ease knowing that Dr. Ashdown and Dr. Carnivus would be delighted to debate the virtues of hybrid icing with you while patching you up. Well, maybe not that extreme, but you get the point. So check out advancedpodiatry.com today for office location and appointment information. So welcome back, everyone. And whether you're listening on Western Reserve Radio, YouTube, or your favorite podcast service, we thank you for joining us for another week. Now, usually if we have any Phantom news to report, this is where we would do it. And we do have a bit or two, but it's been an interesting week around the USHL. So we're going to take a quick look at the league as well. So after we recorded last week, we found out that Trey Taylor had won his third USHL Defenseman of the Week award this season. So congratulations to Trey. That puts him in the lead with the goaltender from Tri-City, whose name I can't pronounce, for most players of the week this season. He was our first star of the week last week, so I really wonder which accolade meant more to him. We can dream.
Yeah. Let's not ask.
Yeah.
That would be rude.
Yeah. Also announced last week is that now former Phantom Michael Rubin was traded to Des Moines for future considerations. And given past history, a future consideration could be a player or a draft pick. But most of the time, this isn't resolved until the off season. Michael did play 18 games with Youngstown this season, but he hasn't been listed on the active roster since the New Year's Eve game. But he has already played 3 games, the last 3 games with Des Moines. So definitely we wish him good luck with his new team.
Yeah, so maybe we'll find out what the terms of that were. A lot of these we never actually find out. So it's good he's getting ice time, and hopefully this works out well for both teams.
So this past weekend, starting off our trip around the USHL, Muskegon made a trip to Plymouth. They were taking on the U18s. And by the looks of the final score, apparently they played the game with 2 empty nets. I'm joking, of course. Muskegon's Jack Williams only had 2 assists. So the nets definitely were not empty. And anybody new listening to the show wondering why we always pick on Jack Williams, that is because last season he had 3 empty net goals against Youngstown. And he had a tendency to cherry pick in those situations. And at one point during the season, those 3 goals made up a decent percentage of his overall goals. So, yeah, that's why we kind of like to stick it to him as far as that every now and then. But, yeah, the U18s won this game 9-8 in a shootout. How would you like to be the Jacks in this game? They led for 33 minutes and 27 seconds of a 65-minute game. They only trailed in this game for 5 minutes and 12 seconds. They scored 8 goals and lost in a shootout.
How do you think the goalies were feeling going into the shootout? I mean, yeah, it's insane. I mean, every once in a while you have a game kind of like this. I don't remember the last time, 17 goals in a game and it being ended in a shootout. That's yeah. I guess that shows you. I mean, we know the U18s, we've only played them once this year.
Yep.
Yeah, that one time we won in overtime. We know they're competitive. We know Muskegon is competitive. That was competitive.
Yeah. So another thing we have talked about recently is the debate between Eastern and Western Conference, the scoring ability of the East versus the goaltending and defense of the West. So we got a bit of a treat last weekend in the form of 2 games between the West leading Tri-City Storm and the East leading Chicago Steel. Now, Tri-City won the game on Saturday 5-0. Then Chicago won 4-3 in overtime on Sunday. So after that, we still don't know what the answer is to this debate.
Yeah, I mean, one game was a shutout. The other one, an overtime win for the other team. Kind of favors Tri-City, but, one bad game. A goalie has an off night or, so I don't understand why people want to try to read a lot into the differences. There's a lot that goes into this travel schedule. There's a lot of teams clustered in Iowa, that tends to favor the Western teams. So I don't pay too much attention to it.
And then we move on to the Lincoln Omaha game on Saturday, where if you go and look at the box score, a Lincoln player had a gross misconduct penalty called against him. We're not really going to go into the who and why of all that, but or what happened. Just on the face of when was the last time you heard of a gross misconduct penalty being called anywhere? I mean, the NHL did away with that a while back.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back and look and see if it's even really in the USA Hockey rule book. So I don't know, but yeah, it was an unusual situation, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
From what we've heard, don't want to touch this one. It was more than just what we would call an excessive celebration.
Well, we'll leave that for the Lincoln guys. They can discuss it on neither one of their shows. It's my show now. They seem to mention me a lot on their show. So they made the comment before. Apparently I referred to Brandon. It was his show. And Gene kind of took me to task for that. So they're referring to this as your show. That's fine because I'm taking over their show since I get talked about so much on their broadcast. So
living rent free.
Listen soon for me covering this on the Thunderstruck, the unofficial Lincoln Stars podcast. And finally, this one just flat out made me laugh. A trade took place recently between Omaha and Sioux City that sent the Lancers' Owen Fowler to the Musketeers. There's conspiracy theories abound as to why this trade was made, and I could care less to get into that. But Sioux City sent out a tweet announcing the trade that, it just really made me laugh, and it really paints a picture of how different the East and West have become in the last couple of years. Their tweet welcomed Owen Fowler to Sioux City and mentioned this, and I quote, "While with the Lancers, he racked up 24 points, but also brings a physical style of play that has him ranked second in the USHL in penalty minutes. Welcome to Sioux City, Owen." So to me, who is an obvious Eastern Conference fan, because that's where the Phantoms play, this sounds like a really strange thing to brag about. And no one on the Western side even mentioned this.
Yeah, that's the distinctions. You like a guy to be physical, but on the same token, you like him to be maybe a little smarter.
That's
we have problems already enough. A few teams, including ourselves, have guys that tend to take these excessive penalties, usually at the wrong time, and sometimes you shoot yourself in the foot. I like to do that as little as possible.
That's to my Eastern Conference brain. What I'm hearing is this kid is so tough, he spends half the time in the penalty box.
Yeah.
But in the Western Conference, they're like, yeah, good on him. That's a good physical player. We are so worlds apart right now. I read that and I just busted out. I just couldn't help myself there. So with all that out of the way, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll recap the Phantoms' 2 games in Madison, a pair of overtime losses that left us feeling bleh. So you're listening to the Dump and Chase podcast right here on Western Reserve Radio. Hello, Phantom fans. This is the Dump and Chase podcast.
We're trying to model ourselves after what you guys have done a little bit.
Voice of the Phantoms and friend of the show, Mr. Matt Lipsack.
I am along for the ride and perhaps provide some modicum of adult supervision here, although really that's a lost cause at this point.
We welcome back Phantoms president Andrew Goldman. That went smoother. It went smoother than it did with Matt.
I want that added. I want that added.
What are you shaking your head now for?
I'm agreeing with you because he has absolutely killed us this year.
Yeah, that's not helping. I'm trying to process. Okay.
Well, so far, finger guns has meant Sam shut up. So got to come up with a different sign for that.
Listen, that was frightening.
And we're back. So the Phantoms took their first of 2 trips in 2 weeks to the state of Wisconsin, taking on the Madison Capitals. This will be their last trip to Madison, at least as far as the regular season. Next week, they're making the trip up to Green Bay. That will be their last trip to Green Bay for the season. And based on their announcer, thank you, Jesus. Anyways, we're going to get into it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, so we'll just jump right in. The game on Friday, this was a 3-2 overtime loss for the Phantoms. So kicking it off in the first period, Madison started the scoring in this game at the 11:04 mark. Jake Dunlap, his 4th of the season from Kukkonen and Severo, giving Madison a 1-0 lead. Roughly about 5 minutes later at the 16:12 mark, Adam Ingram on the power play picks up his 17th of the season from Trey Taylor and Charlie Lurie, tying the game at 1. And that's how we go to intermission. Shots in the period. I didn't see it, but this is how they called it. Shots in the period had Madison up 18-16. I honestly cannot remember 16 shots in that period for the Phantoms other than the goal.
Yeah.
So moving on to the second period at the 8:55 mark, Jaden Grant picks up his 13th of the season from Bayard Hall and Tomasz Machu, giving Youngstown a 2-1 lead. That would be it for the second period. Shots in the period, Madison 11, Youngstown 10. So going on to the third period, Youngstown holding that 2-1 lead up until the 18:37 mark. Game was winding down. This was after Youngstown, I don't want to say missed because it wasn't much of an attempt on an empty net that could have put the game away. Madison takes the puck back the other way. Luke Middlestat, his 13th of the season from Severo, something, and Haskins, tying the game at 2. And we would go to overtime. So shots in the third period, again, Madison 17, Youngstown 12. In the overtime period, which just another one of those frustrating ones, Youngstown actually held possession for most of the overtime period. No shots on goal for them. At the 3:32 mark, Madison's Jack Horbach, his 5th of the season from Middlestat and Kukkonen, giving Madison the 3-2 win. Shots in the overtime period, Madison 1, Youngstown nothing. So overall shots in the game, Madison took that 47-38. Youngstown on the power play, 1 for 3. Madison was 0 for 1. Kyle Chevette stopped 44 shots out of 47 in the loss. Madison was really taking it to Youngstown in the third period. Youngstown could just not get the puck out of the defensive zone. Battled the whole period. They were able to hold him off. Kyle Chevette made some huge saves. Yeah, and then once just kind of that bungling of the empty net situation down at the other end, Madison comes back to tie it with a little over a minute left in the game and then gets the winner in overtime. And like you said, in the title of this episode, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah. Not sure what happened there. That was one, in my opinion, and I think this was pretty obvious we should have won. But yeah, I'm not going to name players. I don't know if that was a shot on goal. It might have been a centering attempt. Either way, it just did not work out. And I almost knew right at that moment, it's like, man, that's going back the other way on us.
Yeah, you watch hockey enough, you know how the hockey gods operate. They miss that, the puck starts going the other way, and you get that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. They're about to score.
And then the overtime, I remember there was another game. I think it was one of the ones that we played in Rochester. It was an overtime just like that where, we come out and, we're just out there moving the puck all around, doing everything but getting it on the net. And again, you just kind of get a feeling of how that's going to go.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the game on Saturday, this was a 5-4 overtime loss for the Phantoms. So getting into the first period, Madison struck early. I think the hockey TV feed was all screwed up. And when it finally popped up on my screen, Madison was celebrating. So I can't really say anything about this goal. I wasn't sure if they scored a goal or if they just started a dance party right there 2 minutes into the game. It's no, at the 1:59 mark of the first period, TJ Schweighardt, his fourth of the season from Dunlap and Severo, giving Madison a 1-0 lead. And then at the 15-minute mark, Winter Wallace, with actually some pretty fancy foot and stick work at the blue line, bringing the puck into the zone, and then ends up knocking in a rebound for his 8th of the season from Kenta Isagai and Charlie Lurie, tying the game at 1. Interesting to note for, I'm sure Kenta felt pretty good about this. This was his first point in 15 games. He had been on a 15-game scoreless streak. So, breaking that streak here on Saturday. So I'm sure that had to feel a little good to him. Then at the 18:45 mark, Madison's Brandon Lamb, shorthanded, picks up his 8th of the season from Severo, giving Madison a 2-1 lead. That's how they go to the intermission. Shots in the period notable because this is the only period out of 8 played, including the overtimes, this weekend that Youngstown led in shots. They led this period 11-10. So moving on to the second period at the 2:48 mark, Madison's Ben Dexheimer, his 5th of the season from Middlestat and Haskins, gave Madison a 3-1 lead. Less than a minute later at the 3:45 mark, Shane LaChance picks up his 4th of the season from Tomas Machu and Justin Varner, cutting the Madison's lead 3-2. Then at the 10:32 mark, Evan Werner picks up his 7th of the season from Charlie Lurie and Winter Wallace, tying the game at 3. And that's how we would go into the third period. Madison led in shots in the period 16-8. So the third period, just 28 seconds in, Kyle Bettens, his 11th from Trey Taylor and Jaden Grant. This gave Youngstown a 4-3 lead. Now, thankfully, we have a very wonderful person and a friend of the show in Matt Lipsack, who not only is their broadcaster, basically their records keeper, historian, everything else you would need stats wise. He was nice enough to send me some stuff. So with Trey Taylor getting an assist on this goal, that was his 26th point of the season. The Phantoms all-time record for points in a season by a defenseman is Ryan Loney, who put up 40 points in the 12-13 season. Right now, Trey is at 26 points with 27 games to go. So it could get real interesting here towards the end of the season. A possible record for Trey to possible Phantoms record for Trey to set. Not only that, only 2 Phantoms defensemen ever have scored 10 goals in a season. That was Dan Renouf, also in the 12-13 season, and Scotty Mayfield in the 09-10 inaugural season. Currently, Trey sits at 7. So right there, you have 2 defensemen scoring records that Trey is starting to creep up on this year.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to really compare. We mentioned the 12-13 season. It was a very different league back then. And in particular, shot blocking is a lot bigger of an emphasis lately. That's incredible for a defenseman. Trey Taylor has obviously been one of our favorite players this year. And yeah, so if he can get to 10 goals he's on pace, he could make 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for a defenseman, a Phantoms defenseman, especially, we won't go into that, but yeah, that's, amazing.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, Matt, for that. And actually he has something else he sent me that we'll have a little later on. So getting back into the game, we have the Bettens goal giving Youngstown a 4-3 lead in the third period. Then at the 8:31 mark, Madison's Connor Schneider, his 2nd of the season from Hart and Finley, tying the game at 4. And that's how it would hold for the rest of the period. Once again, we are going to overtime. Shots in the third period. Madison, actually one of the lower shooting lower shot totals in the weekend series. Madison leading that 7-5. So we get into overtime, and it didn't take long. 1:18 in, Madison's Quinn Finley, his 6th of the season from Dexheimer and Horbach, giving Madison the 5-4 win. I know you in particular were not happy with the way this goal was scored.
No, Finley was left wide open to just wind up on it. No resistance. You would like the goaltender to make the save. Chauvette was just overpowered on it. Yeah, it just was, soft all around.
So, shots for the overtime period. Madison led that 2-0. Overall for the game, shots in the game, Madison 35-24. Youngstown on the power play in this game 0 for 2. Madison on the power play was 0 for 6. Kyle Chevette stopped 30 of 35 in the loss. So for the season, his record drops to 11 wins, 7 losses, 3 overtime losses, and 2 shootout losses, with a 3.01 goals against average and a .903 save percentage. So with that all out of the way, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll break down these games in 4 points, and you'll hear our interview with Phantoms defenseman TJ Schweighardt. This is coming up right here on Western Reserve Radio.
Miss an episode of By All Means, and you could miss a lot.
I have the sound up, and I appreciate the guys that do the work now. But it is with great appreciation I see what the guys do, not only the announcers, but also the players. So we've had wonderful playoffs. I mean, single, double, triple overtime games. It's been fantastic.
By All Means, Tuesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio and streaming live on westernreserveradio.com.
And we're back. So for listeners new and old, 4 points is where we break down the previous weekend into 4 categories: what we liked, what we didn't like, favorite moment, and the Dump and Chase podcast 3 stars of the week. So for no good reason whatsoever, I will be going first.
Alrighty then.
You know what? Sometimes it's just hard to come up with these things week after week. So I gave myself a break.
Sometimes honesty is the best policy.
So for what I liked this weekend, and this kind of cuts both ways into what I liked and what I didn't like. What I did like, the Phantoms going 7 for 7 on the penalty kill. The Phantoms did have a few penalties on Friday. All of those were matching penalties. So only had the one, I believe, in the third period where they were actually shorthanded, were able to kill it off. And then were able to kill off all 6, not saying it's a good thing there was 6 to begin with, but they did manage to kill those 6 off on Saturday. So yeah, their penalty kill going 7 for 7 on the weekend. And once again, I'm going to bring in here via the brain of Matt Lipsack that he sent this to me, pointing out in the last 9 games, the Phantoms penalty kill is 26 of 28. They have killed 13 straight. And the Phantoms are 5-2-2 in those games, and they are 7-7 on the season when not allowing a power play goal. So again, thank you, Matt, for those. All right, so Justin, what did you like this weekend?
Puck pursuit on icing plays, or what would have been icing plays. I'm wondering sometimes if we're not dumping it down from below the red line, knowing that our forwards can beat out an icing call. I saw that, 6-7 times at least over the weekend. What would have been an icing call ends up waved off because one of our forwards manages to out-hustle defenders. And, that adds up. And I think this, on some occasions, this will go into later 4 points. I think it might even be a set play.
So moving on to what I didn't like, and I kind of had this feeling watching the game, and after the game was over, I kind of went back and looked at the box score. The Phantoms' first 3 goals on Saturday were all followed within a couple minutes by a Phantoms penalty. Their first goal of the game was followed, I want to say, less than 20 seconds later by a penalty. Their second goal was around 2 minutes. After that goal, the Phantoms took a penalty. Their third goal, it was 2.5 minutes. They took a penalty, and that's just, you get a goal, you're wanting to swing the momentum your way. That's a real good way to kill it fast. And like I said, I kind of noticed it, and it kind of felt like that was happening. And then when I went back and looked at the box score, yeah, that's exactly what was happening. So it was just kind of this constant shooting themselves in the foot this weekend. And to me, that was probably the most egregious one of all of them.
Yeah. We were just kind of finding any way we could to, not win this weekend. That goes, I brought up last week in the preview, this is a team we're very close to in the standings. We have games in hand, but, head to head, you want to win. I didn't like this week. We went into the third period. Both games had a lead in the third period. We come out 2 point worse what we went into the week. At least, head to head versus Madison in the standings.
Go into the weekend trailing Madison by 3 points, now trailing Madison by 5 points. again, with 4 games in hand, but that this is one of those weekends they could have made things a lot easier for themselves. Seems like in a lot of ways they tried everything to not make that the case.
Yeah, down the road could be, playoff positioning, or, make the playoffs or don't. The way the East is going. Okay, so my favorite moment of the weekend, I am giving that to Shane LaChance's backhand goal on Saturday. Just kind of an oddball play. He had the puck on his backhand right around the face-off dot, left-hand circle. Just kind of one of those, to me, it looked like just he threw it at the net, just kind of see what would happen, because even he seemed surprised when the goal light went on. Just kind of a goofy play, just kind of whips a backhand at the net and ends up, by the looks of it, ends up getting it in top near corner. So yeah, that was a fun one to watch, because even he looked a little surprised that the puck went in. Sometimes it surprises you what you can do. I think it's Eddie Olczyk says there's no such thing as a bad shot, and get it on net any way you can. Sometimes anywhere you can, and that was just a nice shot, really. Anyway, my favorite moment, kind of similar. Like I said, we had a few times where we managed to beat out an icing call. One of those was a dump down the ice, bounced off the boards. Kyle Bettens out hustles people. How many times have we seen him burn somebody this year? He just takes the rebound off the boards, smacks it on net, and we've got the lead in the game. Yeah, just the puck taken, just kind of an odd bounce off the boards right behind the net. So the goaltender's going one direction. The puck just pops straight out in front of the net on the other side. And Kyle Bettens has, like you said, beats out the defenseman, has a wide open net. Just one of those really goofy bounces that, I don't know, maybe just being used to it with the boards in Youngstown, but Bettens was there to pounce on it. That was a very nice goal. So moving on to the last part of this, the Dump and Chase podcast, 3 stars of the week. So we are going to kick it off with the 3rd star. That would be Kenta Isagai. Now, Kenta, maybe not so much on the show, somebody we've been on a little bit. Offensive production is down this season, where the one place where he really stood out this past weekend was on the penalty kill. As much as we talk about Trey, as much as we talk about TJ on the penalty kill, Kenta was really in the mix on a lot of these penalty kills, was doing a lot of great work. Stick work was great. Getting pucks out of the zone. It was incredibly noticeable, especially this weekend. So yeah, I mean, just the one assist on the weekend did snap his scoreless streak, but I think alone just his work on the penalty kill, and especially in the game on Saturday, to me gives him the 3rd star this week. And obviously, like you mentioned, the Saturday game, a lot of those penalties were in, situations where we're already killing our momentum. You give up a goal on one of those, and maybe we don't get to overtime. 2nd star of the week, Winter Wallace. That goal that he scored. That was a really nice move, something, we don't see out of him a lot. Just danced around somebody at the blue line, undressed him, got in position, got a rebound, played clean all week. What more can you say? And then finally, our 1st star of the week, somebody who's been made a couple of appearances here on this. This week, we're giving him the 1st star, Charlie Lurie, 3 assists on the weekend. He is somebody that every weekend we are just seeing more and more out of him. And you start to see why the Phantoms wanted to bring him in. One week you're seeing his skating ability. The next week you're seeing his shooting. Now we're seeing his passing. I mean, he had some great setups this weekend. Didn't get a goal himself, but now this weekend we kind of got to see his passing on display. And all in all, it was very impressive. For this weekend, I have no problem with this whatsoever. Charlie Lurie taking 1st star of the week. And that will do it for 4 points. So after the Sunday power outage game at the Cavelli Center with the U17s, I got to talk with Phantoms defenseman TJ Schweighardt. This was a fun interview, even got a cool story about his hockey origins. So let's take a listen to that. Okay, and we're back in the locker room area. I'm here with TJ Schweighardt. Now, you were traded Youngstown early in the season from Cedar Rapids.
What was that like? Like, how were you given the news that you were coming to Youngstown?
So last year I played for Omaha, and then obviously Cedar Rapids didn't have a season, so I was able to go back there, and it just wasn't the right fit for me. And when Youngstown picked me up, I thought this is going to be a great opportunity. They're going to let me play. They're going to develop me for school. So, I mean, it was pretty smooth. It felt like I was already on the team when I got here. Everyone made it super easy transition, and I thanked them for that. It was awesome.
Now, I've never got to ask somebody who's been traded before. When you get that news, is it immediately go home, get packed up, and you're out the door and on the road? Or, I mean, is it a pretty quick thing that happens?
Yeah. It was a little different because they actually had a bye week. They didn't play that week.
Okay.
So I think I got traded on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And Coach Patterson gave me a call, and he was like, there's no rush. Like, I get that you got to make good relationships with your old billets. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have games that weekend, so I think I got the news on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I was out of there by Friday, and then I skated with the team on Saturday, and we had Sunday off. So it was pretty smooth, luckily.
Now, a couple months ago, we talked to Trey, your defensive pairing mate there. Ever since you came, like, it just seemed like you two clicked immediately on the ice, and we've said on the show many times we would put the two of you up against any defensive pairing in this league. Now, when I asked him why that was, he put it all on you. So I'll ask you that question. I'll ask you the same question. No, yeah. What is it about you two that works so well on the ice?
I don't know. I mean, he's a lefty. I'm a righty. We both have really good IQs, and we know how to make plays. I think for us, we know that our defensive zone comes first. And once that happens, we get out of the zone. We're pretty good two-way defensemen. I mean, as you saw today, he scored a hat trick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just clicked right away. I mean, we do a lot of things off ice as far as video and just talking to each other. Like, hey, we could do this better. We could do that. But he's a great defenseman, and I'm super happy to play with him.
Now, a lot of the fans believe the Phantoms' turnaround this season wasn't a great year last year. A lot of the turnaround this year has to do with the defense and the goaltending. I mean, is there a sense of pride among you guys on that when you play in a conference where everything tends to skew more towards the scoring than the defense?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was in the West last year. I saw the scores and Youngstown last year, and I knew it wasn't. I mean, they had 10 wins all years, and I knew we needed to pick it up this year. And we talked to the general managers about our game plan, and we stick to what they say. They want to make a playoff push this year, and we just buy into what Coach Patterson, Coach Contois, and Coach Gawkin say, and it's working so far. So we're just going to keep knocking away, and in every game we're going to go for 2 points.
Now, to finish up, I did a little bit of research, found a story I wanted to ask you about. What I found was that you started playing hockey at the age of 6 after you won a pair of ice skates in a raffle. Is that true? And
when did I say this? I think I brought this up a week ago for something too. But yeah, that is true. So my sisters had this. They were doing this raffle at a bowling alley. I had no idea what hockey was or skating or anything like that. I think I tried like the football, soccer, lacrosse. I tried everything, and I was just like, these aren't really for me. And then they finally rigged this pair of hockey skates, and they were iTech hockey skates. Okay. And then my parents were like, okay, we'll just throw you out there. And it was like a free skate. And I was doing figure skating lessons, like twirls with girls. No offense, but that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And then on the other rink, they had hockey sticks. It was like learn to play hockey around the age of 6 and under. And from there on, it just took off. I loved it, and I just kept playing from there.
All right. Well, TJ, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Good luck next weekend.
Thank you very much for having me.
And it's time to take a break. On the other side, we'll look ahead to the Phantoms' final trip to Wisconsin this season for 2 games with the Green Bay Gamblers. So we'll be back right here on Western Reserve Radio.
Advanced Podiatry has been making happy feet in the Mahoning Valley for 35 years. Our offices are located in Cortland, Champion, Austintown, Columbiana, and Howland. Our Howland office has relocated to 8601 East Market Street in Howland Corners. Advanced Podiatry offers sports medicine and treatment plans for all ages. You can also request an appointment online by visiting our website at advancedpodiatry.com. Advanced Podiatry, where surgery is always a last resort.
And welcome back to the Dump and Chase podcast. So this weekend, the Phantoms will be traveling to Wisconsin for 2 games with the Green Bay Gamblers. This will be the 4th and 5th meeting against Green Bay this season. So far this year in 3 games, Youngstown is 1-1-1 against them. So just a whole variety of game outcomes there. The last meeting, of course, December 3rd and 4th, that was the American Cup in Rochester, New York. The Phantoms losing the first game 4-3 and then losing the second game 4-3, although that one was in overtime, like we mentioned earlier. Green Bay last weekend played 3 games. They lost to Chicago on Friday, beat Cedar Rapids on Saturday, and then lost to Cedar Rapids on Sunday, which as far as the standings actually helped us out a little bit. So tip of the cap to Cedar Rapids. This will probably be one of the few times we do that this season. Yeah, so coming into this weekend, Green Bay on the year is 17-2-1. That works out to 37 points. They are currently sitting 6th in the Eastern Conference. Youngstown coming into the weekend, 15 wins, 13 losses, 4 overtime losses, and 3 shootout losses. That also works out to 37 points, with Youngstown being 5th in the Eastern Conference. So, yeah, the two teams are tied in points, but again, it goes back to Green Bay has played 2 more games than Youngstown. So as far as the percentage is concerned, that is putting us in 5th above Green Bay. On the season, Green Bay averaging 3.32 goals per game. They are giving up 3.81 goals per game, sitting with a negative 18 goal differential. Youngstown is averaging 3.11 goals per game and is giving up 3.23 goals per game, currently sitting with a negative 4 goal differential. Special teams, Green Bay on the power play, 20.4%. That is 6th in the Eastern Conference. Their penalty kill, 80.4%. That is 2nd in the East. Youngstown's power play, 21.2%. That is 4th in the conference. And their penalty kill, like we talked about earlier, how well the penalty kill has been doing lately, it is up to 75%. And that is 5th in the Eastern Conference, but it is ticking up. So the games this Friday and Saturday, February 11th and 12th, the puck drop will be 8:05 local time here. The games are available on Hockey TV. And when we talk about following us on social media, especially on Twitter, we will be having a bit of a Twitter party for the games this weekend. The mother of former Phantoms captain Riley Funk, Nancy Funk, will be joining us on Twitter to mercilessly mock the announcer for Green Bay because the guy is flat out horrible. Uses phrases we're not sure he actually knows what they mean. Drinking games might be involved between some of the parties, but anytime Youngstown's up in Green Bay, it's always a good time with the Funk family and friends on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I don't know whether or not I should participate here. My liver might not be up to this. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, just like last weekend, this is a team we're real close to in the standings. We have a couple of games in hand. We don't need to give up any more points to them than we need to. So this is a team we really need to, batten down and, not leave points on the table this weekend. So other than that, I look forward to the Twitter party. This will be interesting.
Yeah. And anytime we come into one of these weekends with Green Bay, it's always a strange thing. Just, you don't ever, like the online forums and everything, you never see Green Bay talked about. Like nobody's talking about Green Bay. It's just a very low key team. You always have the feeling they're better than they are, at least what their record shows. And then, there's times it just seems like they're just kind of middling. I finally get to use the phrase Green Bay is like the missionary position of the USHL. It's just,
it's there.
It's there.
It's functional.
It gets the job done.
There's no danger in it.
Yeah, but nobody's going home and bragging about it afterwards. Maybe they like being that low key. I don't know. It's always a strange one coming. There's just no build up to a Green Bay series.
Yeah, I mean, Damian Carfagna would be their top prospect. Pete DeBoer's kid plays for him, I think. One of my favorite people. Let's not go there.
Okay, so we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show and preview next week's episode. This is the Dump and Chase podcast right here on Western Reserve Radio. And we're back, and that will be all we have for this week. On next week's episode, we'll recap this weekend and preview the next weekend at the Cavelli Center with the visiting Muskegon Lumberjacks. We want to thank our wonderful sponsors at Advanced Podiatry. Make sure to check out advancedpodiatry.com for office locations and appointment information. As always, the Dump and Chase podcast is brought to you by hockeyfan.com. Also be sure to check out our syndication partner at ohiohockeydigest.com. Now, if you are someone who needs a lot of options to listen to this show, we can hook you up. You can listen every Wednesday at 5:06 on Western Reserve Radio, either on westernreserveradio.com, the TuneIn or Live 365 apps, the Western Reserve Radio Facebook and Twitter accounts, and the Youngstown Phantoms Facebook page. You can also find new and archived episodes, new episodes every Wednesday, of course, on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make sure to follow us on social media. You can find Justin at facebook.com/YT Hockey Fan and on Twitter at YT Hockey Fan. Both of those are PHAN. And you can find me on Twitter. That is at dump_chase pod. Now I'm up to 90 followers. I'm closing in on 100. I'm almost there. I'm almost to the mountain. So if someone local becomes my 100th follower, I will autograph something for you. Just make sure it's not worth any money. So me signing it can't make it be worth less. It can't depreciate in value if it has no value to begin with. So keep that in mind. Now, all in all, this might seem like a lot of links, but we have you covered. All of these things can be found on our Linktree page, which can be found in the description of however you are listening to this show. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I did want to point out that someone on this show has a birthday coming up in about a month, and I definitely don't have anything planned for that. That's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to bring that up 40 days early. So for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead, and we will talk with you all again next week. Bye now.